Hey everyone, welcome back to Watch and Carry. So in this video, we're going to be covering the extension of the sheath on the wire harness, also known as the water boiling step, which is coming in at about minute 14 or 14:20 in the YouTube instructions for the 2X battery installation on the Onewheel. So what's happening here is just a look at a little bit of anatomy. This is the wire harness that we've taken out from the battery. Okay, and then you have this inner and outer sheath here. So I've already removed this outer sheath. I want you to pretend that this is enclosed as it would normally appear when you first remove it. Now, in the regular instructions from Soren, what's happening here is you have this, let me get a pointer. So you have the wires here, obviously. And then right outside the wires, you have this layer of like silicone or rubber, which I'm touching right now. Then you have this layer of glue outside of that. And then outside that glue, you have this outer sheath right here. Okay. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to separate this outer sheath from this inner sheath. And then we're going to pull this outer sheath in this direction, which was a little bit hard for me to understand in the video because it was sped up at that point. I didn't know if this was being pulled this way or this way, but you're going to be pulling it in this direction. Okay. And then that magic number Soren said is 3¼ inches. So you're going to keep pulling it until the distance between this and this is 3¼ inch, not from here to the end of the sheath that you're pulling. So that was also a little bit confusing. So again, that 3¼ inch is going to be from here to the beginning of this outer sheath here that you're pulling in this direction. And you can see that that is evident here in this video, which is actually Soren here. You can see we have the inner sheath here, and then this thicker part right here where the tape measure ends is that outer sheath. So this part to this part is 3¼ inches. Okay. And in the video, what he does is, so you have that inner layer of glue that we were talking about, right? So let's go back here and focus. Okay, again, imagine that this sheath is intact and I did not cut it. So you have inner layer, glue, outer layer. So you need to heat up this glue in the middle so that way this outer layer can separate from this inner layer. And the way you heat that up is by getting a pot of boiling water and then soaking the harness, just this portion of the harness, obviously not that end and not that end, but just this portion of the harness gets soaked in the water for, I think he said something like 10 to 30 seconds, and then you pull it a little bit in this direction, and then if it doesn't go, another 10 to 30 seconds, you just keep at it, right? So that's great. You know, the reason, and that what Soren is doing there is he's really trying to keep everything stock, and that's amazing that he was able to keep this whole kit stock and reversible. So what I think you need to ask yourself, though, when you're installing this is just think about what is going to be your end game with this board. What would be the reason to want to preserve this outer sheath, right? So reasons that you want to preserve the outer sheath. Okay, I'm planning to resell my Plus, so I want to return it back to stock, and I want to give the customer as close to stock as possible. That's a good reason. Number two, if you just like OEM parts, like you just want everything completely stock on your board, I get it. You know, that makes sense. Number three, if somehow you're able to convince Onewheel that you did not tamper with this and you're going on your warranty, then you want to keep this as intact and stock as possible. I guess you could do that too, even though this kit technically voids your warranty. But if none of those things apply to you, meaning like if you're like me where I'm saying, hey, I've got this Onewheel Plus for a while now, I'm going to keep it. If I return it back to stock, it's okay. I can go out to the hardware store and buy my own outer sheath and glue and do it myself. If you're okay with that, then I think you need to think about what is it worth the risk of having to heat this up in hot water, right? So obviously any kind of moisture is going to be okay here, But in the rare instance that you get moisture here, or anywhere else in your work area that shouldn't have water, that's always a risk, right? And an expensive risk, even though it's maybe rare. The second thing is, even if you do heat this up with water, in the video you can see that Soren has to pull pretty hard in this direction, even with the glue loosened by the heat. And anytime you have a lot of force being pulled, I'm not saying something bad will always happen, but I just feel like that's more of a risk for accidents to happen. So for me, I'm planning to keep this board. I am not planning to return it back to stock. And if I do, this sheath and the glue is super cheap to buy from my auto parts store. So for me, it's not worth having to risk putting it in hot water and having to pull really, really hard. So what did I do? So I went to this outer sheath here. Again, remember you have that inner sheath, glue, and outer sheath. I took a scalpel. Obviously get a very sharp brand new scalpel. The most dangerous thing is a dull knife. Okay, and then right now you can see inner sheath, outer sheath. Take a look at my scalpel. The cutting edge is up here, the blunt side is down here. I'm putting the cutting edge facing up, and then what I did was I just found any corner here and I just moved it in this direction like that to kind of cut a line in the sheath. Now, once I made a line, this sheath did not fall apart completely. The whole entire part of the sheath is cased in glue. So what I did was, now that I have a little sliver to pull, I pulled with my fingernails, and then I would pull, and unravel, and then occasionally it would get very hard because the glue was just too difficult to pull. So then I would take, again, the back side of my scalpel, okay, not the sharp end. So the sharp end is pointing up, and I would just go over that piece of glue and kind of loosen it like this all the way across, and then put that down, unravel it again, right? Use my fingers, unravel it. Okay, we get to another piece of hard glue, do the same thing again, blunt side of the scalpel, right? And then unravel it again. Then eventually this came off. So what I'm going to do with this is, following the rest of his instructions from here on out, I'm going to pull this down 3 1/4 inch. So again, that would be like up to there, right? And then I will take a thin piece of electrical tape and just do one pass around this entire part of the harness here, getting it to look as close to the video as possible, but without having to do the water and without having to do the pulling. So again, I'm not saying this is the right way to do it. I'm just saying, if, you know, keeping stock parts is not important to you, just asking yourself, is it worth the risk to have to expose things to water and having to pull with hard force? It may be not, or it may be. Yeah, that's going to be a decision that you have to do on your own. So anyways, hope you guys found this useful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them down below, and I'll try to get back to them as soon as I can. All right, guys, good luck with the install. Talk to you later.